Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Glass Castles. Vincent Blackwell sat in his home office, finalizing the designs for what would become the most ambitious architectural project of his career. At 42, he had built a reputation as one of Philadelphia's premier architects, known for blending modern aesthetics with practical sustainability. The late evening shadows stretched across his drafting table as he made the final adjustments to the Morgan Heights Community Center, a project that would cement his legacy. The sound of the front door opening broke his concentration. Lily was home. His wife of 15 years worked as a pediatric surgeon at Philadelphia General, her schedule often as demanding as his own. Their professional lives had created a comfortable rhythm over the years, two ambitious people supporting each other's dreams while building a life together. "Vince," Lily called out, her voice carrying through their spacious colonial home. "Are you still working?" Vincent saved his work and stepped away from his desk. "Just wrapping up," he replied, moving to greet her. When they met in the hallway, he noticed the fatigue etched across her face. "Rough day." Lily dropped her bag by the entryway table. At 40, she remained strikingly beautiful, her auburn hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, green eyes that still captured him after all these years. "Lost a patient today. 10-year-old with complications from appendicitis. Shouldn't have happened." Vincent pulled her into an embrace. This was their ritual, being each other's harbor after difficult days. "I'm sorry," he whispered against her hair. "Want to talk about it?" She stiffened slightly in his arms before pulling away. "Actually, I think I just need a shower and sleep. Ryan might stop by later with some case notes I left at the hospital." Vincent nodded, trying to ignore the subtle change in her demeanor at the mention of Ryan Fletcher. His best friend since college had become a cardiovascular surgeon at the same hospital as Lily, and they'd grown closer over the past year through their professional collaboration. Vincent had always been grateful that his wife and best friend got along so well. "I'll leave some dinner in the microwave for you both," he said, watching as Lily climbed the stairs without looking back. Later that night, Vincent found himself unable to sleep, distracted by the quiet voices coming from the kitchen. Lily and Ryan had been reviewing case notes for nearly 2 hours. Their laughter floated up the stairs, comfortable, intimate laughter that made something twist in Vincent's stomach. He turned over in bed, telling himself he was being ridiculous. They were colleagues, friends, nothing more. The following morning, Vincent prepared breakfast as Lily rushed to get ready for an early surgery. When she kissed him goodbye, it felt perfunctory. "Will you be home for dinner?" he asked, catching her hand before she could rush out. "Probably not. There's a department meeting that might run late," she replied, gently extracting her hand. "Don't wait up." After she left, Vincent checked their shared calendar on the refrigerator. There was no department meeting scheduled. The first seed of doubt took root. That evening, Vincent called Ryan about their weekend plans to watch the Eagles game. Ryan answered, background noise suggesting he was at a restaurant. "Hey, can I call you back tomorrow?" "I'm in the middle of something," Ryan said, his voice slightly hushed. "Sure, no problem." "Late dinner?" Vincent asked casually. There was a brief pause. "Yeah. Just grab a bite after work. Talk tomorrow." After hanging up, Vincent stared at his phone, an uneasy feeling settling over him. On impulse, he called the hospital and asked for Lily, only to be told she had left hours ago. He checked her location on their shared phone app. It showed her at Riverside Park, miles from the hospital or home. Vincent poured himself a whiskey and sat in the darkened living room, waiting. When Lily finally returned close to midnight, her excuse about the meeting running late and stopping for a drink with colleagues felt hollow against the evidence mounting in his mind. Over the next 2 weeks, Vincent began noticing other inconsistencies. Text messages Lily would quickly hide when he entered the room, weekend conferences that weren't listed on the hospital website, calls from Ryan that she would take in another room. The foundation of trust he had built his marriage upon was developing hairline fractures, threatening to collapse the entire structure. Chapter 2, The Architect of Deception. Vincent had always considered himself a reasonable man. Evidence, logic, and careful analysis formed the backbone of his professional success. Now, he would apply those same principles to his personal life. If something was happening between Lily and Ryan, he needed proof before confrontation. On a rainy Tuesday morning, Vincent met with Nora Sullivan, his assistant and the office manager at his architectural firm. At 35, Nora had been with him since he started the company, her efficiency and discretion proving invaluable over the years. "I need to take a few personal days," Vincent told her, sliding a folder of completed designs across his desk. "The Morgan project is ready for submission. Everything else can wait until next week." Nora studied him with concerned brown eyes. "Is everything okay? You seem distracted lately." Vincent appreciated her perception, but maintained his composure. "Just some personal matters to attend to. Nothing serious." The lie tasted bitter in his mouth. After leaving the office, Vincent drove to a small electronics store in a strip mall on the outskirts of the city. The middle-aged proprietor, Dominic, had done security consulting for one of Vincent's commercial projects years ago. "Surveillance equipment?" Dominic raised an eyebrow when Vincent explained what he needed. "Trouble at the office?" "Home security upgrade," Vincent replied smoothly. "Recent break-ins in the neighborhood." By that afternoon, Vincent had installed discrete cameras in the common areas of his home and a GPS tracker on Lily's car. He also purchased spyware for their home computer. The methodical precision with which he approached these tasks helped quiet the storm of emotions threatening to overwhelm him. This wasn't about jealousy or paranoia, he told himself. This was about truth. That evening, he received a text from Ryan inviting him to lunch the following day. "Need your advice on something important?" the message read. Vincent agreed, curious whether his friend would reveal anything. They met at a steakhouse they frequently patronized. Ryan seemed nervous, fidgeting with the silverware and avoiding direct eye contact. "Everything okay with you and Pamela?" Vincent asked, referring to Ryan's girlfriend of 2 years. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "We broke up last month. I've been meaning to tell you, but it's been complicated." "I'm sorry to hear that," Vincent said, watching his friend's reactions carefully. "Any particular reason?" Ryan took a long drink of water. "Sometimes people just grow apart, you know? Anyway, that's not what I wanted to talk about. I'm thinking of taking a position at Mayo Clinic. It's a fantastic opportunity, but it would mean moving to Minnesota." The news hit Vincent like a physical blow. Was Ryan planning to leave because of guilt, or was he planning to take Lily with him? He maintained his composure, asking appropriate questions about the position while his mind raced through implications. "When would you need to decide?" Vincent asked. "Within the month. I haven't told anyone else yet. Not even at the hospital," Ryan replied, finally making eye contact. Something in his gaze, regret, perhaps, or guilt, strengthened Vincent's suspicions. After lunch, Vincent drove to Philadelphia General Hospital and parked in the visitor lot. He told himself he was just checking if Lily's car was where it should be during her shift. It was. As he was about to leave, he saw her exiting the building with Ryan. They walked closely together, and when they reached her car, Ryan placed his hand on the small of her back in a gesture that appeared far too intimate for mere colleagues. Vincent followed them to a small cafe several blocks from the hospital. Through the window, he watched them sitting close, talking intensely, their hands occasionally touching across the table. When Ryan reached up to brush a strand of hair from Lily's face, Vincent had seen enough. That night, when Lily returned home, Vincent was working in his office, acting as though everything was normal. She mentioned that she'd had lunch with the new hospital administrator, and he nodded without comment, the lie hanging between them like an invisible wall. Later, reviewing the camera footage, he watched Lily make a phone call from their kitchen while he was in the shower. With the volume turned up, he clearly heard her say to Ryan, "I miss you too. We need to tell him soon. This isn't fair to anyone." The final piece of confirmation came when he checked her text messages remotely through the spyware he'd installed. A message to Ryan read, "He suspects nothing. I feel terrible, but I can't help how I feel. When you hold me, everything else disappears." Vincent shut down his computer and walked to the window, staring out at the night sky. 15 years of marriage, 10 years of friendship with Ryan, all built on what now appeared to be a foundation of sand. He had his evidence. Now he needed a plan. Chapter 3. Collapse. The car accident occurred on a Friday afternoon. Vincent received the call from the hospital while in a meeting with clients. "Mr. Blackwell, your wife has been in an accident. She's at Philadelphia General. Her condition is stable, but she's asking for you." Vincent's hands trembled slightly as he gathered his things. What happened? Another driver ran a red light and struck the passenger side of her car. She has a concussion and some lacerations, but nothing life-threatening. The drive to the hospital passed in a blur. Despite the betrayal he discovered, the thought of Lily injured sent a primal fear through him. 15 years of love couldn't be erased overnight, no matter what she had done. When he arrived at the hospital, Vincent rushed to the emergency department. A nurse at the station stopped him as he approached the treatment rooms. "I'm sorry, sir. Only family allowed in the trauma area," she said firmly. "I'm her husband," Vincent replied, his voice tight with stress. The nurse checked her computer screen, frowning slightly. "That's strange. Another man already signed in as her husband." She looked up, confusion evident in her expression. "Dr. Fletcher?" Vincent's heart stopped. The world around him seemed to blur at the edges, sound becoming muffled as though he were underwater. "There must be some mistake," he managed to say. "Ryan Fletcher is a colleague. I'm Vincent Blackwell, Lily's husband." The nurse's expression shifted to one of uncomfortable realization. "I'm sorry for the confusion, Mr. Blackwell. Room 114, down the hall on the right." Vincent walked mechanically toward the room, each step feeling heavier than the last. Through the partially open door, he could see Ryan sitting beside Lily's bed, holding her hand. They hadn't noticed him yet. "We've been trying to find a right time to tell you," Ryan was saying softly. "But after today, I can't keep pretending. When I got the call about the accident, I thought I'd lost you. Life's too short for secrets." "I know," Lily replied, her voice weak but clear. "It's time. He deserves the truth, no matter how painful." Vincent stood frozen in the doorway, watching this intimate exchange. The physical evidence he'd gathered over the past weeks paled in comparison to witnessing this moment. The tenderness between them, the casual way Ryan had claimed the title of husband, the plans they were making about his future. Rather than confront them, Vincent turned and walked away quietly. Neither Lily nor Ryan noticed his presence or his departure. In the hospital parking lot, he sat in his car for nearly an hour, staring at nothing, feeling the last pieces of his former life crumbling around him. That evening, Vincent returned to their empty home. Lily had texted that she was staying overnight at the hospital for observation. He packed methodically clothes, important documents, his architecture awards, and family photographs from before he met Lily. He left her wedding ring on the kitchen counter with a single sentence written on a notepad. "I know everything." Vincent checked into a hotel downtown, created a new email address, and sent formal messages to his assistant and business partner explaining that he needed to take an extended leave due to personal matters. Then he turned off his phone and ordered room service with a bottle of scotch. 3 weeks passed in a haze of strategic planning. Vincent rented a furnished apartment using only cash, consulted with a divorce attorney recommended by a former client, and began transferring his assets to new accounts. He grew a beard, started wearing contacts instead of his usual glasses, and adopted workout clothes instead of his customary suits. Small changes to make him less immediately recognizable. During this time, Lily called incessantly. 27 missed calls accumulated before he finally blocked her number. Emails flooded his inbox, moving from confused to desperate to angry. He read each one without responding, studying her evolving tactics like an archaeologist examining artifact from a dead civilization. "Please come home so we can talk about this. You're being childish by disappearing like this. I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. Don't throw away 15 years without giving me a chance to explain. Ryan and I are worried about you. Please just let us know you're okay." The last one made him laugh bitterly. They were worried about him. How considerate. Ryan's messages showed a similar progression, starting with concern and friendship before revealing his true priorities. "Vince, man, I'm so sorry. This isn't how we wanted you to find out. We need to talk about this like adults. Disappearing isn't solving anything. Lily is a wreck. Whatever you think of me, don't punish her. I know I broke the bro code in the worst possible way, but you're still my best friend. The partnership at Mayo Clinic needs my answer. Lily and I are planning to accept. I hope someday you can forgive us. Vincent archived these messages without reply. Forgiveness was not in his vocabulary anymore. Instead, he began constructing something new from the ruins of his former life. A blueprint for retribution that would be as meticulous and precisely engineered as any building he had ever designed. On the 22nd day of his self-imposed exile, Vincent received an unexpected visitor at his temporary apartment. He had been careful, but apparently not careful enough. When he opened the door, Nora stood there, concern etched on her face. "Your wife hired a private investigator," she said without preamble. "He came asking questions at the office. I figured you should know." Vincent invited her in, surprised by her loyalty. "How did you find me?" Nora gave him a look that managed to be both sympathetic and exasperated. "I've managed your calendar for 8 years. You always stay at the Westmore when you need to think. When you weren't there, I checked nearby apartment buildings with short-term leases." She paused. "You look terrible, by the way." For the first time in weeks, Vincent smiled genuinely. "I'm working on that." Over coffee, Vincent confided in Nora about the betrayal. She listened without judgment, occasionally asking clarifying questions with the same efficiency she brought to their professional relationship. "What are you planning to do?" she finally asked. Vincent considered her trustworthy, but decided against sharing the full scope of his intentions. "Get a divorce. Move forward." Nora studied him, clearly not convinced by his simple answer. "They're leaving for Minnesota in 2 months. Lily came by the office looking for you. She mentioned the Mayo Clinic opportunity." "Good for them," Vincent replied coldly. Nora reached across the table and squeezed his hand briefly. "Just be careful, Vincent. Revenge might feel justified, but it can consume you if you're not careful." After she left, Vincent returned to his laptop where dozens of open tabs displayed information about Ryan's career, Lily's family connections, property records, and Minnesota state law. Nora's warning echoed in his mind, but he dismissed it. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about justice, a reckoning for those who had shattered the life he had built with such care. He would give them exactly what they wanted, the freedom to be together. But first, he would ensure they understood the true cost of their betrayal. Chapter 4. Blueprints of Retribution. 6 weeks after disappearing from his old life, Vincent moved into a sparsely furnished apartment across town under the name Victor Bennett. The transformation was more than physical. The beard, the contacts instead of glasses, the casual clothes replacing tailored suits. He had methodically dismantled his former identity, preserving only what was necessary to execute his plans. The divorce proceedings were underway, conducted through his attorney, with minimal direct contact. Vincent had surprised Lily by not contesting the division of assets or fighting for the house. His apparent capitulation made her suspicious, her attorney reaching out repeatedly to clarify that this wasn't some kind of trick. Vincent allowed her to keep most of their joint possessions, requesting only specific items with sentimental value in his firm's control. "You're making this too easy for them," his attorney, Patricia Walsh, observed during one of their meetings. "The judge will wonder why you're not fighting harder." Vincent offered a thin smile. "I'm fighting a different battle, one that began with understanding his targets better than they understood themselves." Vincent had spent weeks compiling information. Ryan's gambling habit that he'd successfully hidden from most of his friends, Lily's estranged relationship with her parents due to their disapproval of her career choices, the mountain of debt they both carried from medical school that their high salaries had only begun to address. Most importantly, he learned about their planned future together. Through careful electronic surveillance and information gathered by a private investigator he'd hired, Vincent discovered they had already placed a down payment on a lakeside property near Rochester, Minnesota. Ryan had signed his contract with Mayo Clinic, scheduled to begin in 2 months. Lily had applied for positions at the same institution, using Ryan's new influence to expedite her application. They were building a new life while the remnants of their old ones were still smoldering. Vincent intended to ensure that new foundation was as unstable as the ones they had abandoned. His first move came during a medical conference in Boston that both Ryan and Lily attended. While they were gone, Vincent, using the access codes he still had from when they were friends, entered Ryan's apartment and installed surveillance software on his personal computer. He also placed a GPS tracker on Ryan's car and copied the data from his home office. Among Ryan's files, Vincent found something unexpected: extensive research on alternative cancer treatments, clinical trials, and experimental procedures. Notes in the margins referenced MHB repeatedly. Vincent remembered that Ryan's mother, Marjorie Helen Blackwell, had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer last year. The Mayo Clinic position suddenly made more sense. They specialized in exactly the kind of cutting-edge treatments Ryan was researching. This discovery provided Vincent with a crucial piece of his puzzle. Ryan wasn't just pursuing career advancement. He was desperately trying to save his mother's life by gaining access to treatments not available elsewhere. Vincent felt a moment of unwanted empathy before hardening his resolve. Everyone had their reasons for betrayal. That didn't justify it. Back in his apartment, Vincent received an unexpected call from Drew Porter, an old college friend who now worked as a pharmaceutical executive. "Heard through the grapevine that you're going through some rough times," Drew said after preliminary small talk. "Divorce, right?" Vincent confirmed without elaborating. News travels fast. "Look, I know we haven't been close in recent years, but I'm in town next week. Let me buy you a drink. Might have a business proposition that could interest you." The timing was serendipitous. Vincent had been looking for opportunities to expand his network beyond architecture, knowing his revenge would require resources and connections in other industries. They arranged to meet at an upscale bar downtown the following Tuesday. Drew Porter had aged well since college, still athletically built with only hints of gray at his temples. He greeted Vincent with genuine warmth that briefly reminded him of better days. "Honestly, I almost didn't recognize you," Drew said, gesturing to Vincent's new appearance. "The beard suits you, though." Over drinks, Drew explained his proposition. His pharmaceutical company, Nexus Therapeutics, was expanding into a new research facility and needed an architect who understood both aesthetics and the specialized requirements of medical research spaces. "Your work on the Westlake Medical Center impressed our board," Drew explained. "We're prepared to offer a very competitive contract, with potential for ongoing work if the first project succeeds." Vincent listened attentively, asking relevant questions while his mind processed the implications. Nexus Therapeutics was one of the leading companies developing the exact treatments Ryan's mother needed. The synchronicity was too perfect to ignore. "I'm interested," Vincent said finally, "but I should mention that I'm planning to relocate soon. Would that be an issue?" Drew smiled. "Actually, the facility is in Rochester, Minnesota. We're partnering with Mayo Clinic on several research initiatives. Would that location work for you?" Vincent allowed himself a small smile. "Perfectly." Later that night, Vincent added this new development to his planning board: a large corkboard in his bedroom, where he tracked all elements of his revenge strategy. Red thread connected photographs of Lily and Ryan to their new home and workplace in Minnesota. Blue thread linked his own planned movements. Yellow marked potential pressure points and vulnerabilities. The next morning, Vincent received a text from an unknown number. "I know what you're planning. We should talk," followed by an address in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. Cautious but curious, Vincent drove to the location that afternoon. It was a modest ranch-style home with well-maintained gardens. When he knocked, the door was opened by an older man with military-straight posture and evaluating eyes. "Harold Mitchell," the man introduced himself. "You might remember me as Lily's father." Vincent had met Harold only twice during his marriage, once at the wedding and once during a tense Christmas dinner 5 years ago. The estrangement between Lily and her parents had been one of the few subjects she refused to discuss in detail. "Come in," Harold said. "We have matters to discuss." The interior was meticulously organized, with photographs of military service and family members arranged precisely on the walls. Harold led Vincent to a sunroom at the back of the house, where a silver-haired woman sat reading. "Marie," Harold said. "Vincent's here." Lily's mother looked up, studying Vincent with the same critical eyes as her husband. "You've changed your appearance," she observed. "Smart move." Vincent remained standing. "Why am I here?" Harold gestured to a chair. "Because we share a common interest. My daughter has made a terrible mistake, and we believe you're planning to make her face consequences." "If you're asking me to reconsider," Vincent began. Marie interrupted. "We're offering to help." This unexpected alliance required careful consideration. Vincent sat down, listening as Harold and Marie explained their position. They had never approved of Ryan, seeing through his charm to the selfish ambition beneath. When Lily had called them after Vincent's disappearance, ostensibly seeking comfort, but actually fishing for information on his whereabouts, they had recognized the manipulation techniques they'd warned her about for years. "She chose her path," Marie said, her voice tinged with resigned sadness. "But that doesn't mean we approve of how she's walking it." Harold was more direct. "That man will ruin her professionally and personally. We've seen his type before. Once he gets what he wants from Mayo Clinic, she'll find herself discarded just like you were." Vincent considered their offer carefully. Having allies with personal knowledge of Lily could be valuable, but he was reluctant to share his full plans with anyone. "I appreciate your position," he said finally, "but I work alone." Harold nodded as though he'd expected this answer. "At least take this," he said, sliding a flash drive across the table. "Financial records, personal correspondence, information that might prove useful. We've been keeping tabs on them both since we suspected something was happening between them." Vincent pocketed the drive. "Why are you really doing this?" Marie answered, her voice suddenly tired. "Because despite everything, she's our daughter. Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones we need most. Better she learn it now from you than years later when the stakes are higher." As Vincent drove home, he reflected on this unexpected turn. Harold and Marie Mitchell were offering themselves as unwitting pawns in his game, potentially useful, but also unpredictable. He would need to incorporate them carefully, using their resources while ensuring they remained at arm's length from his ultimate plans. That night, reviewing the contents of the flash drive, Vincent found something that made his breath catch. Evidence that Ryan had been manipulating Lily for far longer than the affair suggested. Emails dating back 3 years showed Ryan strategically becoming her confidant, subtly undermining her marriage by emphasizing Vincent's workaholic tendencies and absences. When Lily had been passed over for department chief last year, Ryan had suggested it was because the board viewed her as too committed to family life, implying that her marriage was holding back her career. The betrayal ran deeper than passion or opportunity. It had been methodically orchestrated over years. Vincent added this revelation to his planning board, the red threads multiplying as the true scope of deception became clear. 2 days later, Vincent received notification that his divorce had been finalized. The same afternoon, he signed a contract with Nexus Therapeutics and booked his flight to Rochester, Minnesota. The blueprints of his retribution were complete. Now it was time to break ground. Chapter 5: Foundations. Rochester, Minnesota welcomed Vincent with a blanket of early autumn snow. He arrived 3 weeks before Ryan and Lily were scheduled to move, giving him time to establish himself and prepare the battlefield. The apartment he leased was in the same upscale complex where they had signed a lease, though in a different building. Close enough to monitor, distant enough to avoid casual encounters. His first week was dedicated to professional establishment. Vincent, now consistently using his Victor Bennett identity, met with the Nexus Therapeutics team, impressing them with his comprehensive understanding of their specialized facility needs. Drew had recommended him highly, and Vincent ensured their faith was justified, presenting initial concepts that seamlessly integrated research functionality with architectural innovation. "This is exactly what we've been looking for," Dr. Elaine Warner, the research director, told him after his presentation. "Someone who understands that form and function aren't competing principles in scientific spaces." Vincent cultivated this professional relationship carefully, learning about the company's research priorities, particularly their groundbreaking work on advanced cancer treatments. He asked thoughtful questions about their partnership with Mayo Clinic, establishing himself as someone with genuine interest in medical advancement rather than just another contractor. We're collaborating with a new cardiovascular surgeon starting next month, Dr. Warner mentioned during one of their meetings. Dr. Fletcher, brilliant mind, particularly interested in our vascular regeneration project. Vincent maintained his neutral expression. Sound impressive. I look forward to meeting him. The second phase of Vincent's plan began with Harold Mitchell's unexpected arrival in Rochester. The older man appeared at Vincent's apartment unannounced, carrying a single suitcase. I've rented a place 10 minutes from here, Harold explained without preamble. Marie stayed behind to avoid suspicion, but we agreed I should be on site. Vincent's irritation at this unsolicited involvement was tempered by pragmatism. Harold had resources and motivation that could prove useful. What exactly are you planning to contribute? Harold's military background showed in his precise, strategic thinking. Intelligence gathering primarily. I've already made connections at Mayo through old service buddies. Plus, I've moved some funds into position if financial leverage becomes necessary. After careful consideration, Vincent decided to incorporate Harold into a limited portion of his plans. He explained his position at Nexus Therapeutics and how it connected to Ryan's research interests without revealing the full scope of what he intended. You're playing a longer game than I expected, Harold observed. I thought you'd be more direct. Direct actions create immediate satisfaction, but limited impact, Vincent replied. I'm more interested in comprehensive results. Their unlikely partnership formed around a shared objective, though Vincent suspected their definitions of justice differed significantly. Harold wanted his daughter to see Ryan's true nature. Vincent wanted them both to experience complete dismantling of the future they'd built on the ruins of his trust. The third week brought an unexpected complication. While reviewing Nexus's research documentation, Vincent discovered that Ryan's mother's cancer had progressed significantly. She had been accepted into a highly selective trial program at Mayo Clinic, one of only 20 patients nationwide, which explained Ryan's desperate focus on securing his position there. The trial was scheduled to begin the same week Ryan started his new job. This information created an ethical dilemma Vincent hadn't anticipated. His plans would potentially affect not just the people who had betrayed him, but an innocent woman fighting for her life. Vincent spent a restless night considering his options before reaching a decision. He would adjust his timeline, but not his ultimate objective. Marjorie Blackwell would receive her treatment before the consequences of her son's actions fully materialized. The day before Ryan and Lily were scheduled to arrive, Vincent visited their future home. Using the building maintenance uniform he'd acquired through careful planning, he gained access to their apartment. He installed discrete surveillance devices in common areas and planted the custom software he developed on the pre-installed smart home system. The technology would allow him to monitor their conversations and activities while controlling subtle environmental factors, temperature fluctuations, intermittent Wi-Fi disruptions, random alarm triggers, minor irritations designed to create a constant undercurrent of stress. That evening, Harold reported that Ryan and Lily had checked into a hotel across town. They would move into their apartment tomorrow. What's our first move? Harold asked as they shared a drink in Vincent's apartment. Vincent swirled the whiskey in his glass. We wait. Let them settle in, feel secure. The most effective attack comes when the target believes they're safe. Harold frowned. Passive approach. Strategic patience, Vincent corrected. And while we wait, we continue building our positions. You mentioned financial leverage. Harold nodded. I've secured a controlling interest in a property management company that owns their apartment complex. And I have connections looking into the private equity firm backing Nexus Therapeutics. Vincent raised an eyebrow, genuinely impressed. You've been thorough. Marines, Harold said simply. We don't start missions without proper preparation. The next day, Vincent watched through remote surveillance as Ryan and Lily moved into their new home. They looked happy, excited about their fresh start. Lily arranged photographs on shelves, none featuring Vincent, he noted, while Ryan unpacked kitchenware, the domestic scene a stark contrast to the professional personas they maintained publicly. We made it, Ryan said, pulling Lily into an embrace. Clean slate, just like we planned. I still feel terrible about how things ended with Vincent, Lily replied, her expression clouded momentarily. Ryan's response was revealing. He made his choice by disappearing. You're not responsible for his inability to handle the situation like an adult. Vincent watched this exchange with cold detachment. The surveillance confirmed what he already knew. Their narrative cast him as the villain, their betrayal reframed as inevitable love that couldn't be denied. This self-serving revision of history strengthened his resolve. They would learn that actions had consequences, regardless of how they justified them to themselves. That night, Vincent activated the first phase of his plan, a subtle manipulation of their environment. Their apartment temperature dropped 5 degrees overnight. Not enough to be immediately alarming, but sufficient to disturb their sleep. Their internet connection became sporadically unreliable, particularly during Ryan's attempt to video conference with Mayo Clinic administrators. The smart speaker system randomly played music at low volume during the early morning hours, then denied any record of activation when questioned. These minor disruptions would gradually increase, creating an atmosphere of unpredictability and tension in what should have been their sanctuary. Meanwhile, Vincent prepared for his first direct contact with Ryan through their professional connection, scheduling a meeting with the Mayo Nexus collaborative team for the following week. The foundations of his revenge were now firmly established. Like any well-designed structure, it would appear ordinary from the outside while concealing complex systems within. And like any master architect, Vincent had built in contingencies for unexpected developments. Whatever actions Ryan and Lily took from this point forward, they would be moving through a space he had engineered specifically for their undoing. Chapter 6: Structural Integrity. The collaborative meeting between Mayo Clinic and Nexus Therapeutics took place in a sleek conference room overlooking Rochester's medical campus. Vincent arrived early, positioning himself at the far end of the table where he could observe without being immediately noticeable. He had prepared meticulously for this moment, the first direct contact with Ryan since the hospital revelation 8 weeks ago. When Ryan entered with a group of Mayo Clinic physicians, he showed no sign of recognizing Vincent. The beard, contacts, and casual professional attire created enough difference from his former appearance. More importantly, Ryan wasn't looking for Vincent Blackwell in this context. Why would his betrayed friend be sitting in a pharmaceutical partnership meeting in Minnesota? Dr. Warner made introductions around the table. And this is Victor Bennett, the architect designing our new research facility. He has an innovative approach to creating spaces that enhance collaborative work. Ryan nodded politely in Vincent's direction without particular interest. The meeting proceeded with discussion of research protocols and facility requirements. Vincent participated appropriately, offering insights on structural adaptations to accommodate specialized equipment while studying Ryan's interactions with colleagues. His former friend appeared confident, already establishing himself as an authority despite being new to the institution. Ryan frequently mentioned his previous research, positioning himself as the natural bridge between Mayo Clinic and Nexus Therapeutics. The other physicians deferred to him with the respect typically reserved for more established colleagues. Near the end of the meeting, Vincent strategically introduced a question about vascular regeneration, Ryan's specific research interest. Dr. Fletcher, I understand you've done groundbreaking work in this area. How might the facility design better support these particular research requirements? Ryan looked directly at Vincent for the first time, momentarily startled by the focused attention. A flicker of unease crossed his face. Not recognition, but something more instinctive. Prey sensing a predator's gaze without identifying its source. Good question. Ryan recovered quickly. The primary challenge is maintaining precise environmental conditions for tissue cultivation. Temperature stability within 0.5 degrees is essential. Vincent nodded thoughtfully. That's exactly the kind of specific requirement we need to address early in the design process. Perhaps we could schedule a more detailed consultation? I'd value your expertise. The trap was baited, and Ryan took it without hesitation. Of course, my assistant can coordinate. After the meeting, Vincent deliberately positioned himself near the exit, timing his departure to coincide with Ryan's. In the elevator, he initiated casual conversation. "Impressive work you're doing, Dr. Fletcher. New to Rochester?" Ryan nodded, scrolling through emails on his phone. "Just moved here with my partner. She's a pediatric surgeon, also joining Mayo." "Must be a significant transition," Vincent observed. "Leaving established practices, relocating to a new city." Something in his tone made Ryan look up, studying Vincent more carefully. "Sometimes change is necessary for growth." "And you?" "Local. Recent transplant myself," Vincent replied with a thin smile. "Following opportunities." They parted in the lobby with a professional handshake. As Ryan walked away, Vincent noted the slight tension in his shoulders, the unconscious response to perceived threat. The seed of unease had been planted. Now it would grow. That evening, Vincent reviewed the surveillance footage from Ryan and Lily's apartment. They were discussing the persistent issues with their new home, the inconsistent heating, the malfunctioning appliances, the strange electrical fluctuations. "I'll call maintenance again tomorrow," Ryan said, frustration evident in his voice. "This is ridiculous for what we're paying." Lily looked exhausted, the stress of relocation compounded by these mysterious problems. "Maybe we should have rented somewhere else. This place felt too good to be true from the beginning." "It's just teething problems," Ryan insisted. "Every new building has them. Besides, the location is perfect for us both." Vincent increased the intensity of the disruptions slightly, enough to maintain constant irritation without pushing them to move elsewhere. The smart refrigerator began displaying error messages about temperature regulation. The bathroom exhaust fan activated randomly during the night. Small but persistent intrusions into their comfort and security. The following week brought Vincent's scheduled consultation with Ryan. They met in the cardiovascular research wing where temporary offices had been established for the new physicians. Ryan's space was already personalized with medical texts, research papers, and a single photograph of Lily on the desk. "Mr. Bennett, thank you for making time." Ryan greeted him professionally. "I've reviewed your preliminary designs. Very impressive work." Vincent moved toward the desk, gesturing to the photo. "Family, my partner," Ryan replied with obvious pride. "She's a pediatric surgeon here." "You make a handsome couple," Vincent observed. "Recently together?" Ryan hesitated, the personal question unexpected in a professional consultation. "We've known each other for years, but our relationship is relatively new." "Interesting how that happens," Vincent commented. "People can know each other for ages before suddenly seeing new possibilities." Something in his tone made Ryan look at him more carefully. "Have we met before, Mr. Bennett? Something about you seems familiar." Vincent maintained his composed expression. "I don't believe so. I have one of those faces people tend to think they recognize." He smoothly transitioned to the facility designs, redirecting the conversation to professional matters. Throughout their discussion, Vincent deliberately used phrases and mannerisms from their previous friendship, subtle triggers for Ryan's subconscious. He referenced architectural concepts they had once discussed during their college days, described design approaches using analogies Vincent had typically employed. By the end of their hour together, Ryan was visibly unsettled, though clearly unable to identify why. "I feel like we've had similar conversations before," he said as Vincent prepared to leave. "Strange déjà vu." Vincent smiled. "The mind makes connections in unexpected ways." "I look forward to our next consultation, Dr. Fletcher." Later that day, Vincent met with Harold in a quiet cafe several blocks from Mayo Clinic. The older man reported on his progress. He had cultivated relationships with administrative staff in the surgical department where Lily worked, gathering information about her integration into the team. "She's struggling," Harold said, showing no emotional reaction to his daughter's difficulties. The department head questions her commitment. "She's been late twice and unprepared for a departmental meeting." "Not like her at all." Vincent nodded. The environmental disruptions were having their intended effect, creating sleep deprivation and background stress that impacted their professional performance. "What about Ryan's mother?" Vincent asked. "Has she started treatment?" Harold consulted his notebook. "First session completed yesterday. Initial response positive according to nursing staff." "Good," Vincent said. We maintain current operations until her treatment course is completed. Nothing that might interfere with that process. Harold studied him with narrowed eyes, developing a conscience about collateral damage. Establishing boundaries, Vincent corrected. This is about justice, not cruelty for its own sake. The next phase of Vincent's plan involved more direct manipulation of their professional circumstances. Through his growing influence at Nexus Therapeutics, he strategically adjusted research priorities in ways that complicated Ryan's work without obviously targeting him. Critical equipment deliveries were delayed. Grant application deadlines were moved forward with minimal notice. Collaborative meetings were rescheduled at the last minute to conflict with other commitments. Meanwhile, Harold's connections in hospital administration ensured similar, coincidental complications in Lily's department. Her surgical schedule became increasingly problematic, with cases running longer than anticipated or being rescheduled at inconvenient times. Documentation requirements suddenly became more stringent for her specifically, creating additional administrative burden. None of these obstacles was catastrophic individually. Their power lay in accumulation, a constant drip of frustration and setback that eroded confidence and security. Vincent monitored the results through surveillance, watching as Ryan and Lily's relationship began showing signs of strain under the pressure. "I don't understand why everything is so difficult here," Lily complained during dinner one evening. "We were supposed to have a fresh start, but I feel like I'm fighting uphill every day." Ryan was less sympathetic than expected. "Every transition has challenges. You need to adapt faster. I'm facing the same issues, but managing to stay on track." The subtle competition in his response, positioning his adaptation as superior to hers, confirmed another aspect of Vincent's assessment. Ryan's support had been conditional from the beginning, offered when it served his purposes or when the cost was minimal. Under genuine pressure, his self-interest emerged more clearly. Vincent's direct interactions with Ryan increased, always maintaining the professional pretext while gradually establishing an unsettling familiarity. During one facility tour, Vincent deliberately referenced a restaurant in Philadelphia that had been Ryan's favorite. "The design reminds me of Maximilian's Back East, that blend of modern aesthetic with classical touches." Ryan stopped abruptly. "How did you know I frequented Maximilian's?" Vincent maintained his calm demeanor. "Did you? Interesting coincidence. It was a popular spot in Philadelphia. I consulted on their renovation before moving here." Each encounter added another layer of unease, the sense that this stranger somehow knew things he shouldn't. Ryan began researching Victor Bennett online, searching for connections to his past. Vincent had anticipated this, creating a carefully curated digital presence that provided professional credibility without obvious links to his former identity. 10 weeks into their relocation, the first major crack appeared in Ryan and Lily's relationship. Vincent's surveillance captured a significant argument. Ryan accusing Lily of undermining his position by complaining to colleagues about their difficulties adjusting to Rochester. "Do you have any idea how that makes me look?" Ryan demanded. "I vouch for you to get this position." "Vouch for me?" Lily responded incredulously. "I'm a board-certified pediatric surgeon with an impeccable record. I didn't need your endorsement to be qualified." "That's not how things work in practice, and you know it," Ryan shot back. "Connections matter. Politics matter. And you're damaging both with your constant negativity." The argument escalated until Ryan stormed out, leaving Lily alone in their increasingly hostile apartment environment. Vincent watched her cry for 20 minutes before calling her parents home, a connection she had avoided since moving to Minnesota. Marie answered, but quickly passed the phone to Harold, who was actually in Rochester watching the same surveillance feed with Vincent. "Lily, is everything all right?" Harold asked, seamlessly playing his role from hundreds of miles away. Vincent observed the conversation with clinical detachment as Lily confided her struggles to her father, unaware that he was actively participating in creating them. Harold maintained his cover perfectly, offering sympathetic concern while subtly reinforcing doubts about Ryan's commitment. "Men like they're often most charming when things are easy," Harold told his daughter. "It's adversity that reveals true character." After the call ended, Harold turned to Vincent. She's reaching her breaking point sooner than expected. Ryan isn't, Vincent replied. His focus remains on his mother's treatment and his professional establishment. We need to accelerate the timeline. Harold nodded in agreement. What's the next phase? Vincent pulled out architectural plans for the Nexus Research Facility. We introduced them to Victor Bennett's predecessor, Vincent Blackwell. The structural integrity of Ryan and Lily's new life was compromising under precisely calculated pressure. Soon, it would be time for the controlled demolition phase of Vincent's revenge. Chapter 7. Calculated Collapse. 3 months into their Minnesota relocation, Ryan and Lily attended the Nexus Therapeutics Winter Gala, a formal event celebrating the research partnership with Mayo Clinic. The venue sparkled with holiday decorations, medical elites in formal attire networking over champagne and gourmet hors d'oeuvres. Vincent observed from across the room, timing his approach carefully. Ryan stood with department heads, positioning himself at the center of discussions about research priorities. Lily hovered at the periphery of these conversations, her discomfort evident in her rigid posture and forced smile. The strain between them had become visible to colleagues, generating whispered speculation about trouble in paradise. Vincent had prepared meticulously for this moment. His appearance had been further refined, the beard precisely trimmed, contacts enhancing his natural eye color, tailored suit creating a silhouette distinctly different from his former self. He approached the group during a natural break in conversation, glass of sparkling water in hand. "Dr. Fletcher, good to see you," Vincent greeted Ryan with practiced casualness. "The vascular regeneration proposal is generating significant excitement among our investors." Ryan acknowledged him with a nod, clearly trying to place this man who seemed increasingly familiar, yet stubbornly unidentifiable. "Mr. Bennett, have you met my partner, Dr. Lily Blackwell?" Vincent turned to Lily, extending his hand. "A pleasure to finally meet you. Your reputation in pediatric surgery precedes you." Lily's grip was professional but distant. "Thank you, though I'm still establishing myself here." "Transitions take time," Vincent replied, holding her gaze a moment longer than comfortable, especially when built on complex foundations. Something in his phrasing made her blink, a slight furrow appearing between her brows. Vincent maintained the interaction for exactly 4 minutes, long enough to establish presence without drawing undue attention, before excusing himself to speak with Nexus executives. Throughout the evening, he positioned himself to remain in their sight line, a constant peripheral presence. When the formal dinner began, seating arrangements placed him at a table adjacent to theirs, close enough to occasionally enter their conversation without appearing to force connection. During dessert, Vincent executed the next phase of his plan. Drew Porter, his college friend and Nexus executive, approached their table with orchestrated enthusiasm. "Victor," Drew called slightly too loudly. "The Minneapolis committee loved your proposal for their medical center. Said it reminded them of Vincent Blackwell's work. Highest compliment in the industry." Vincent shook Drew's hand, aware that Ryan and Lily had both stiffened at the mention of his former name. High praise indeed. Blackwell was a visionary. "Was?" Drew questioned, playing his unwitting role perfectly. "Has he retired?" "Just disappeared, from what I understand," Vincent replied, voice pitched to carry to the neighboring table. "Personal issues, apparently. Brilliant mind, though. His Westlake Medical Center design revolutionized patient care environments." Ryan's fork clattered against his plate. Vincent continued his conversation with Drew, pretending not to notice while monitoring Ryan's reaction through his peripheral vision. Lily had gone pale, her hand gripping her water glass with white knuckles. The seed of recognition had been planted. Later that evening, Vincent's surveillance captured their reaction when they returned home. "That architect," Ryan said, loosening his tie with agitated movements. "Something about him isn't right." Lily sat heavily on their sofa. When he mentioned Vincent, did you notice how he said it? Like he was enjoying some private joke. "You're being paranoid," Ryan replied, though his tone lacked conviction. Blackwell is a common name in architecture circles. He knew specific details about Vincent's work, Lily insisted. And there's something about his mannerisms, the way he phrases things. What are you suggesting? Ryan demanded. That Vincent somehow followed us to Minnesota? Changed his appearance? Infiltrated Nexus Therapeutics? That's ridiculous. Lily didn't respond immediately, her expression troubled. I should never have called him 27 times, she finally said quietly. It felt like harassment, even as I was doing it. What if we push him too far? He's gone, Ryan said firmly. Probably living on some beach with our divorce settlement. Stop creating problems when we already have enough real ones. Vincent watched this exchange with cold satisfaction. The cognitive dissonance was taking root, the possibility too absurd to accept yet too disturbing to dismiss. He increased the environmental manipulations that night, programming the home automation system to create subtle but unmistakable anomalies. Lights dimming momentarily when Vincent's name was mentioned, the temperature dropping sharply for 30 seconds at random intervals. The following morning, Vincent implemented the next phase at Mayo Clinic. As Ryan entered his research lab, he found his team gathered around a computer, reviewing a professional journal article. Dr. Fletcher, have you seen this research on vascular regeneration in trauma patients? His assistant asked. Published last month. The methodology aligns perfectly with your current protocols. Ryan moved to the screen, then froze as he saw the author's name. Vincent Blackwell, MD, PhD. This must be a mistake, he said, voice strained. Vincent Blackwell is an architect, not a medical researcher. His assistant looked confused. The credentials check out. Affiliated with Johns Hopkins. Should I contact him about potential collaboration? No, Ryan replied too quickly. Let me review the paper first. Could be a different Blackwell. Throughout the day, references to Vincent Blackwell appeared in Ryan's professional sphere. His name mentioned in departmental emails, cited in research documents, appearing on consultation requests. Each instance was arranged through Harold's administrative connections and Vincent's strategic digital insertions. None was overtly threatening, yet their cumulative effect created a sense of omnipresent surveillance. Simultaneously, Lily experienced her own version of this psychological pressure. Patient charts inexplicably included notes in handwriting reminiscent of Vincent's. A new hospital administrator with the surname Blackwell requested her participation in a committee. A child brought to her clinic wore a T-shirt from Vincent's alma mater. These manipulations accelerated over the next 2 weeks, gradually increasing in frequency and specificity. Vincent orchestrated his physical encounters with strategic precision, appearing in elevator doors as they closed, glimpsed across parking lots, present in meetings Ryan attended, but always positioned to avoid direct interaction. The psychological toll became evident in their behavior. Ryan grew increasingly paranoid, checking over his shoulder constantly, researching Victor Bennett obsessively, installing additional security measures in their apartment, unknowingly creating more access points for Vincent surveillance. Lily became withdrawn, her professional performance suffering as sleep deprivation and anxiety took their toll. Vincent monitored these developments through multiple channels: direct observation, surveillance feeds, hospital gossip relayed by Harold, performance reports obtained through Nexus connections. The controlled demolition was proceeding as designed, each pressure point precisely targeted to maximize impact while maintaining plausible deniability. The critical moment came on a Tuesday evening. Ryan returned home to find Lily sitting in their darkened living room, a glass of wine in hand, staring at her phone. I found something, she said without preamble. About Victor Bennett. Ryan dropped his briefcase, moving quickly to her side. What is it? Lily held up her phone, displaying a professional biography. There is no record of Victor Bennett before 8 months ago. No previous architectural work, no education history, nothing. He appeared out of nowhere with a fully formed career. That doesn't prove anything, Ryan argued, though his voice lacked conviction. I showed his photo to that new nurse in pediatrics, the one who transferred from Philadelphia General, Lily continued. She said he looks familiar, but couldn't place him. Then I used one of those age regression apps. She swiped to another image. Vincent's current appearance digitally altered to remove the beard, adjust the hairstyle, add glasses. Ryan stared at the image, blood draining from his face. Jesus Christ. It's him, isn't it? Lily whispered. He's been here all along, watching us, playing with us. We need to leave, Ryan said, already moving toward their bedroom. Pack essentials only. And go where? Lily demanded, following him. He found us here. What's to stop him from finding us anywhere? We'll figure it out, Ryan insisted, pulling luggage from their closet. The important thing is getting away from him now. Vincent watched this panicked response with detached interest. The collapse was proceeding faster than anticipated. Time to accelerate the final phase. He picked up his phone and called Harold. They're planning to run. Implement containment protocol. Within 20 minutes, as Ryan and Lily were frantically packing, their apartment door chimed. The building manager stood outside with an apologetic expression and 2 security guards. Dr. Fletcher, Dr. Blackwell, I'm sorry to disturb you, but we've received noise complaints from several neighbors. Our security team needs to speak with you. Ryan attempted to dismiss them, but the manager insisted on entering. As the conversation grew increasingly tense, Lily's phone rang. The hospital administrator requesting her immediate presence for an emergency case. Simultaneously, Ryan received an urgent text about his mother experiencing complications during treatment. Their escape effectively blocked. They separated, Ryan rushing to his mother's side, Lily to her patient. Vincent had orchestrated these emergencies through Harold's connections, ensuring neither was life-threatening, but both requiring legitimate professional response. While they were gone, Vincent entered their apartment using the access he'd long established. He left no physical evidence of his presence, but made one critical change to their environment, activating the final phase of his custom software that would reveal his surveillance and manipulation over the coming days. When Ryan and Lily returned separately to their apartment, both emergencies resolved without serious consequence. They found their home security system displaying a simple message on every screen. I see you. The calculated collapse had begun its final, catastrophic phase. Chapter 8. The Reckoning. The morning after the I see you message appeared, Ryan and Lily awoke to find their apartment transformed into a testament to Vincent's omnipresence. Every digital screen, from their television to their refrigerator display, cycled through surveillance images of them taken over the past months. Their smart speaker system played recordings of private conversations on a continuous loop, focusing particularly on moments when they had discussed Vincent or rationalized their betrayal. My God, Lily whispered, staring at their living room television as it displayed footage of them sleeping from the previous night. He's been watching everything. Ryan frantically tried to disable their devices, unplugging systems and removing batteries, but the surveillance continued uninterrupted. Vincent's software had created autonomous backup systems throughout their home. More disturbing than the surveillance itself was the revelation of how comprehensively their environment had been manipulated. Temperature fluctuations, appliance malfunctions, sleep disruptions, all meticulously documented as intentional interventions. We need to go to the police, Lily insisted, already reaching for her phone. Ryan grabbed her wrist, stopping her. And tell them what? That the husband you cheated on has been spying on us? That we're being harassed by a man who technically doesn't exist? Victor Bennett has legitimate credentials. Vincent Blackwell disappeared. We have no proof connecting them. So we do nothing, Lily demanded, jerking her arm free. We leave, Ryan said firmly. Today. Forget our things. We check into a hotel and figure out our next move. As they hurriedly packed overnight bags, their phones simultaneously received text messages from an unknown number. Running won't help. I'm waiting at the Lakefront Hotel, your most likely destination given its proximity to Mayo Clinic and Ryan's mother's treatment facility. Perhaps the Windsor Inn? That would be my second choice. The message continued. I've prepared detailed dossiers on both of you, including evidence of ethical violations in Ryan's research applications and Lily's testimony against former colleagues during last year's malpractice investigation. Nothing illegal, but certainly career-limiting if distributed to the Mayo Clinic Ethics Committee. Meet me at the address below at 7 p.m. Come alone. Both of you. Ryan threw his phone against the wall, cracking its screen. This is insane. He can't do this. He already is, Lily replied, her voice hollow. What choice do we have? That evening, they arrived at the specified address, a lakeside property on the outskirts of Rochester. Vincent watched their approach through security cameras, noting Ryan's aggressive driving and Lily's rigid posture in the passenger seat. They had followed his instructions to come alone, though Ryan had made 3 phone calls from a borrowed hospital phone, likely attempting to arrange some form of backup. Vincent activated the exterior lighting as they approached the front door, illuminating the modern architectural masterpiece he had purchased 3 months earlier through a shell company. The design was unmistakably his. Anyone familiar with Vincent Blackwell's architectural style would recognize his hallmarks in every line and angle. When they rang the doorbell, Vincent took a moment to study them on the monitor. Ryan's false confidence barely masking his fear, Lily's resignation evident in her slumped shoulders. He pressed the intercom button. Enter. The door is unlocked. They stepped into a minimalist entryway that opened to a dramatic great room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the frozen lake. Vincent stood at the center, his transformation now reversed. Clean-shaven, glasses instead of contacts, dressed in the tailored style they would recognize from his former life. Vincent, Lily breathed, the last shred of denial evaporating. Welcome, he replied calmly. Please sit down. We have much to discuss. Ryan remained standing, fists clenched at his sides. This stops now. Whatever game you're playing, it's over. We'll get restraining orders, press charges for stalking, harassment. With what evidence? Vincent interrupted smoothly. Victor Bennett doesn't exist beyond professionally verified credentials and a spotless reputation at Nexus Therapeutics. Any surveillance equipment in your apartment would show no external access points. All activities originating from your own accounts and devices. As for harassment, I have hours of recorded conversations where you both expressed guilt and fear that I might seek revenge. Preemptive paranoia doesn't constitute evidence of actual threat. Vincent gestured again to the seating area. Now, shall we discuss this like adults? Or would you prefer I forward my documentation to the Mayo Clinic Ethics Committee tomorrow morning? Reluctantly, they sat on the edge of a sleek sectional sofa while Vincent took a chair opposite them. The positioning was deliberate, placing them together as a unit while he remained separate, in control. Why? Lily asked, her voice barely audible. Why go to these extremes? An interesting question from a woman who called me 27 times after I discovered her betrayal. Vincent replied evenly. The answer is simple. Actions have consequences. You both made calculated decisions to betray my trust. I've made equally calculated decisions about the appropriate response. Ryan leaned forward aggressively. So this is revenge? Terrorizing us for months because your feelings were hurt? Vincent's expression remained impassive. This isn't about hurt feelings, Ryan. This is about accountability. You systematically undermined my marriage for years before the affair began. Subtle comments about my work schedule, exaggerating my absences to Lily, positioning yourself as the understanding friend while painting me as the neglectful husband. I have the emails, the text messages, the recorded conversations documenting your methodical approach. He turned to Lily. And you, so quick to believe his narrative, so eager to rewrite our 15 years together as a mistake you needed to escape. Did you ever actually try to address your concerns with me directly? Or was it easier to accept Ryan's version of reality? That's not fair, Lily protested weakly. I tried to talk to you about your work schedule, about starting a family. Twice, Vincent interrupted. You raised those subjects exactly twice in 5 years. I reviewed our text messages, emails, calendar entries. 2 conversations that you quickly abandoned when I asked for specific examples of neglect. He leaned forward. Meanwhile, you were confiding in Ryan several times weekly about your troubled marriage, a narrative that conveniently evolved to justify your betrayal. Ryan stood abruptly. We don't have to listen to this psychoanalysis bullshit. What do you want, Vincent? Money? The house in Philadelphia? Name your price, and let's end this. Vincent laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to startle them both. You still don't understand. This isn't a negotiation. This is a reckoning. He gestured around the room. Everything you've experienced since arriving in Minnesota, the professional setbacks, the relationship strain, the psychological pressure, has been precisely engineered to achieve specific outcomes. You're insane, Ryan whispered. No, I'm methodical, Vincent corrected. And effective. Your mother's cancer treatment is proceeding well, by the way. I've been monitoring her progress carefully. The trial medication is showing remarkable results. Ryan went pale. You stay away from my mother. I have no intention of interfering with her treatment, Vincent assured him. Unlike you, I don't target innocents in my operations. In fact, I delayed certain aspects of my plan to ensure her medical care wouldn't be disrupted. He turned to Lily. Your parents send their regards, by the way. Lily's expression shifted from confusion to horror as understanding dawned. My father. He's been helping you? Harold has been an enthusiastic collaborator, Vincent confirmed. Apparently, he never approved of your relationship with Ryan. Something about recognizing self-serving ambition when he sees it. Ryan paced the room, agitation increasing. What is the point of all this? What do you want from us? Vincent stood, moving to a side table where he retrieved 2 folders. He handed one to each of them. These contain documentation of your professional missteps since arriving in Minnesota. Ryan's research protocol violations, Lily's patient care documentation issues. Nothing manufactured, simply comprehensive records of errors made under pressure. The originals will be delivered to Mayo Clinic administration tomorrow, unless you comply with my conditions. Which are? Ryan demanded, not opening his folder. Separation, Vincent said simply. You will end your relationship immediately. Ryan, you will accept the position at Johns Hopkins that was offered last week. Yes, I know about that opportunity you've kept secret from Lily. You will have no further contact with her beyond professional courtesy if your paths cross at medical conferences. He turned to Lily. You will remain at Mayo Clinic, rebuilding your reputation through the mentorship program I've arranged with Dr. Warner. Your position is secure provided you demonstrate the commitment to excellence you were once known for. You can't force us to separate, Lily protested. I'm not forcing anything, Vincent replied calmly. I'm offering a choice between professional destruction and a chance to salvage individual careers. What collapsed under minimal pressure was your relationship. The first sign of adversity revealed its true foundation. He gestured to the surveillance footage still visible on a wall monitor. A recent argument where Ryan had blamed Lily for their mounting problems, his supportive facade cracking under stress to reveal the self-interest beneath. Look at yourselves, Vincent continued. The relationship you destroyed, 2 others to pursue, couldn't withstand even artificial obstacles. What does that tell you about its sustainability? Ryan tossed his folder onto the coffee table. This is ridiculous. We're leaving. Do your worst. Vincent nodded, as if expecting this response. Before you go, there's something you should see. He activated another monitor, displaying live video of Marjorie Blackwell's hospital room. Your mother's treatment is scheduled to transition from inpatient to outpatient next week. The medication that's saving her life is manufactured exclusively by Nexus Therapeutics, provided to Mayo Clinic through the research partnership I helped establish. Ryan froze, understanding the implicit threat. You wouldn't. I've respected medical ethics throughout this process, Vincent replied. Your mother's treatment has never been at risk. But continuation in the trial program requires physician advocacy. Your professional standing at Mayo Clinic directly impacts your ability to ensure she receives optimal care. Vincent deactivated the monitor. This isn't a threat. It's simply reality. Your actions determined this situation long before tonight. The room fell silent as the true scope of Vincent's orchestration became clear. He hadn't just infiltrated their professional lives or surveilled their home. He had created an entire ecosystem of consequence around them, with multiple pressure points and leverage opportunities. You planned all of this from the beginning, Lily said, her voice hollow with realization. From the moment you walked out of that hospital room. I designed it the way I design buildings, Vincent acknowledged, with careful attention to both structural integrity and eventual impact. The foundation was your betrayal. I merely built upon what you provided. Ryan studied Vincent with a mixture of fear and reluctant respect. What happens if we agree to your terms? You each retain a chance at professional redemption. Separately, Vincent gestured to additional documentation in their folders. The separation agreement includes non-disclosure clauses regarding all aspects of our interactions. Break those terms, and the consequences will be immediate and irreversible. Lily opened her folder, scanning the detailed agreement within. You've thought of everything. That's what architects do, Vincent replied. We anticipate problems before they arise and design solutions that appear inevitable in retrospect. Ryan and Lily exchanged a long look, the weight of their situation settling between them. The connection Vincent had once envied now appeared brittle, already fracturing under the pressure of consequence. We need time to discuss this, Ryan finally said. You have until tomorrow morning, Vincent replied. The details for contacting me are in your folders. Choose wisely. As they left, Vincent watched their separate body language, already distancing from each other, blame beginning to overshadow whatever love had justified their betrayal. The collapse was proceeding exactly as designed. Now it was time for the final phase, ensuring they understood the true cost of their choices. Chapter 9. Foundations of Steel. 1 year later, Vincent stood on the observation deck of the completed Nexus Therapeutics research facility, surveying the structure that had helped facilitate his revenge and rebuild his future simultaneously. The building had already won 2 international architecture awards, establishing Victor Bennett as a rising star in medical facility design. Vincent had decided to maintain this identity professionally, a clean break from his past that allowed him to build something new from the ruins of betrayal. Harold Mitchell approached, nodding in appreciation at the snow-covered campus below. Impressive work, both the building and the strategy. Thank you for your contribution, Vincent replied. Their unlikely alliance had evolved into a respectful partnership over the past year, bound by shared principles about consequences and accountability. Have you seen today's journal? Harold asked, handing Vincent a medical publication featuring Ryan Fletcher's latest research paper, published from his new position at Johns Hopkins, exactly as Vincent had engineered. His mother's cancer is in remission, Vincent noted, scanning the acknowledgments section. Good. That was never part of the equation. Harold studied him carefully. You're still monitoring them both. It wasn't a question. Vincent didn't bother denying it. Information is power. I prefer to maintain awareness. The truth was more complex than he admitted to Harold. Vincent continued tracking Ryan and Lily not from vengeful obsession, but to ensure their compliance with his terms and to verify the effectiveness of his strategy. Ryan had indeed taken the Johns Hopkins position, rebuilding his career with the single-minded ambition that had always defined him. His research was genuinely valuable. Vincent saw no benefit in hindering medical advancement that could help others. Lily had remained at Mayo Clinic, gradually reestablishing her reputation through dedicated patient care and research contributions. According to Vincent's sources, she had recently begun dating a radiologist, a tentative step toward building something new from the lessons of her past. Neither had attempted contact with the other beyond necessary professional interaction at one medical conference 8 months earlier. Vincent's surveillance of that event had shown awkward politeness masking unresolved tension, exactly the arm's-length relationship his agreement had mandated. Do you ever regret not destroying them completely? Harold asked, interrupting Vincent's thoughts. You had the power to end their careers permanently. Vincent considered the question seriously. Destruction wasn't the objective. Consequence was. He gestured to the building around them. In architecture, we don't demolish structures without purpose. We remove what's unsound to build something stronger in its place. Harold nodded thoughtfully. And what have you built for yourself? Beyond professional success, I mean. The question touched on something Vincent rarely examined. The personal reconstruction he had engineered alongside his revenge. His relationship with Nora Sullivan, his former assistant now partner in his architectural firm, had evolved from professional respect to genuine connection over the past year. She knew his full history, had witnessed his transformation, and chose to remain beside him despite understanding the calculated ruthlessness he was capable of when betrayed. Something with a stronger foundation, Vincent replied simply. Later that evening, Vincent received a notification he had programmed long ago. A final message automatically sent to both Ryan and Lily on the one-year anniversary of their confrontation. The message was simple. Video footage of them in the hospital room when Vincent had first discovered their betrayal, followed by surveillance highlights of their subsequent panic as his revenge unfolded. The final frame showed a simple statement: consequence, not punishment. Remember the difference. Vincent closed his laptop, the notification confirming delivery. This final message served multiple purposes, reminding them that he maintained awareness of their activities, reinforcing the permanence of their separation, and providing closure to his orchestrated response to their betrayal. As he prepared for dinner with Nora, Vincent reflected on the architecture of revenge he had designed and executed. He had not sought to destroy Ryan and Lily, merely to ensure they experienced appropriate consequences for their choices. Their suffering had been proportional to their actions, their future opportunities limited but not eliminated. Most importantly, Vincent had reconstructed himself in the process. The man who had walked away quietly from that hospital room had been broken by betrayal, but the architect who emerged from that destruction was forged with stronger materials, unwilling to forgive betrayal, but equally unwilling to be defined by it. When Nora arrived, her warm smile and direct gaze reinforced this evolution. She knew exactly who he was, had witnessed his capacity for methodical retribution, and chose him anyway. "Ready?" she asked, taking his offer hand. Vincent nodded, leaving behind the final digital confirmation of his revenge completed. More than ready. They stepped into the winter evening together, moving forward into a future Vincent had designed with the same precision he brought to his architectural masterpieces, built on foundations of hard-earned wisdom and uncompromising strength. Not the life he had once planned, but perhaps a more authentic one, constructed with full awareness of what he was capable of, both in creation and consequence. The unforgiving architect had built his most significant structure not in steel and glass, but in the carefully designed aftermath of betrayal, a legacy that would endure in the lives of all involved, a testament to the fundamental principle that had guided his response. Every action creates ripples through lives interconnected. Choose wisely what you set in motion, for you cannot control where the waves eventually break. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there. Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Blueprint. Julian Yates learned about Foundation when he was 12 years old, kneeling beside Gerald Butler in the crawl space of a foreclosed home in South Philadelphia. Gerald, a grizzled contractor with hands like weathered oak, had taken Julian under his wing after his parents died in a car accident. "Boy," Gerald had said, his flashlight illuminating rotted joists, "everything starts with the foundation. You build on something rotten, the whole damn thing comes down eventually." 20 years later, Julian understood that lesson applied to more than just houses. He stood in the kitchen of the home he'd just purchased. He'd purchased with $320,000 of his own money, watching his wife Candace scroll through her phone with the same disinterested expression she'd worn for the past 6 months. The evening sun cast long shadows through the windows, illuminating the custom cabinets he'd installed himself, the backsplash he'd spent 3 weekends perfecting. "We should celebrate," Julian said, setting down 2 glasses of wine. "We finally own a home." Candace glanced up briefly. "You mean you own a home? My name's on the deed, but let's be honest about who's actually established here." The comment landed like a punch, but Julian kept his expression neutral. This was new territory. When they'd met 5 years ago at a charity construction event, Candace Pearson had seemed different from her wealthy mainline family. She'd volunteered to help build homes for veterans, getting her hands dirty alongside him. She'd laughed at his jokes, been impressed by his work ethic rather than dismissive of his blue-collar background. "Both our names are on the deed," Julian, said carefully. That's what matters. Sure. She took a sip of wine without looking at him. Whatever helps you sleep at night. Julian had grown up in Kensington, where his father worked as a union electrician and his mother as a school cafeteria manager. After they died, drunk driver, wrong place, wrong time, he'd thrown himself into learning every aspect of construction. By 25, he was running job sites. By 30, he'd saved nearly every dollar he'd made, living in a modest apartment, driving a 10-year-old truck, building towards something. That something had been this house. And Candace. They'd married 3 years ago in a ceremony that Alfonso Pearson, Candace's father, had barely tolerated. Julian remembered standing at the altar, seeing the doubt in Alfonso's eyes, the tight smile on the face of Candace's brother Noel. But Candace had chosen him anyway, or so he'd thought. I'm heading out, Candace announced, grabbing her Prada bag, a birthday gift from her father. Dinner with Daddy and Noel at Luc Bernardin. I thought we were celebrating tonight. You're celebrating. I'm having dinner with my family. She paused at the door. Oh, and Julian? We need to talk tomorrow. About finances. The door closed before he could respond. Julian stood alone in the kitchen he'd poured his heart into, surrounded by the evidence of his work and the growing realization that his foundation might not be as solid as he believed. Chapter 2. The Declaration. The next morning, Julian was replacing a faulty outlet in the guest bedroom when Candace emerged from their master suite, already dressed for brunch in a designer outfit that cost more than his truck payment. We need to talk, she said, her tone businesslike. Sit down. Julian set down his tools and joined her at the dining table he'd refinished from a Craigslist find. She slid a folder across him. I've been thinking a lot about our arrangement, Candace began, her fingers drumming on the table. And I've realized I've been carrying this relationship financially and emotionally. It's not fair to me. Julian's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. My father helped me see things clearly. You paid for the house, yes, but I've been covering most of our lifestyle. The vacations, the dinners out, the nice things. My income from a trust fund has been subsidizing your humble earnings. I make 6 figures as a site manager, Julian said evenly. And I have access to millions. See the disparity? She leaned back, crossing her arms. So here's what's going to happen. From now on, we split everything 50-50ths. Every meal, every bill, every expense. I'm not carrying you anymore. The words hung in the air like a sledgehammer suspended over glass. Julian studied his wife's face, the woman he'd loved enough to build a life with, and saw a stranger. No, not a stranger. He saw Alfonso Pearson's daughter, Noel Pearson's sister. He saw 3 years of her family's influence finally winning out over whatever affection she'd once felt. After I paid $320,000 for this house, Julian said quietly, you want to split everything 50-50? The house was your decision. I wanted to rent in Society Hill, remember? But you insisted on building equity or whatever blue-collar wisdom Gerald taught you. Julian felt something shift inside him. Not anger. Anger was hot and chaotic. This was cold, calculated assessment. The same mental state he entered when surveying a job site, identifying structural weaknesses, planning solutions. Okay, he said simply. Candace blinked. Okay. 50-50. I agree. She'd expected resistance, maybe tears or anger. Her mouth opened, then closed. Well, good. I'm glad you're being reasonable about this. Completely reasonable. Julian stood, gathering his tools. I'll draw up a document. We'll both sign it. Everything 50-50 from this point forward. Fine. She grabbed her bag. I'm meeting Noel for brunch. We'll discuss this more later. After she left, Julian sat in the silence of his house, their house, legally speaking, and pulled out his phone. He dialed a number he'd called 1,000 times over the years. Ricardo Donovan, attorney at law, came the familiar voice. Rico, it's Jules. I need you to come over. Bring your legal pad. What's wrong? My foundation's cracking. Time to assess the damage and plan a rebuild. Ricardo Donovan arrived 2 hours later, looking concerned. They'd grown up 3 blocks apart in Kensington, had each other's backs through juvie scares and job losses, through Julian's parents' death, and Ricardo's fight through law school working nights at a warehouse. Julian laid out everything. The house purchase, Candace's changing behavior, her family's influence, and finally, this morning's ultimatum. Ricardo leaned back on the couch, his expression grim. Man, I warned you about marrying into money. Different world, different rules. I love her, Rico, or who I thought she was. I know. Ricardo pulled out his legal pad. But love and law are different things. Let's talk reality. The house is in both names. Joint tenancy with right of survivorship. But you paid the entire purchase price? Do you have documentation? Wire transfer records, everything. Ricardo nodded slowly. Pennsylvania is an equitable distribution state. In a divorce, assets get divided fairly, not necessarily equally. The fact that you paid for the house entirely with premarital funds could work in your favor. I'm not thinking about divorce yet. I'm thinking about documentation. Smart. Ricardo met his eyes. What's your play? Julian stood, walking to the window, overlooking the backyard he'd landscaped himself. She wants 50-50? I'll give her exactly that. But I'm going to document every single thing. Every repair I make, every hour I work on this house, every meal I cook, every errand I run. All of it. You're building a case. I'm building protection. Gerald always said measure twice, cut once. I'm going to measure everything. Rico. And when she realizes what 50-50 actually means, when she sees how much I've been contributing that she took for granted, either she'll wake up or you'll have everything you need for what comes next. Julian turned from the window. Can you draft something for both of us to sign? A post-nuptial agreement acknowledging the 50-50 split she's demanding. Ricardo grinned. I can draft something that'll lock her into exactly what she's asking for. You sure about this? She said she's not carrying me anymore. Julian's voice was steel. Let's see how she does carrying her own weight. Chapter 3. The Mask Falls. Over the next 2 weeks, Julian implemented his new system with methodical precision. He created a shared spreadsheet titled Household Expenses and Contributions that tracked everything down to the dollar. Groceries? Split 50/50ths. He started keeping receipts. Utilities? Split 50/50ths. He set up separate payment tracking. Household repairs? That's where things got interesting. What is this? Candace demanded one evening, looking at an invoice Julian had left on the counter. The kitchen faucet was leaking. I fixed it. My labor rate is $85 an hour. Took 2 hours, plus parts. Your half is $195. Her face flushed. You're charging me to fix our house. Our house. 50/50, remember? I'm a skilled tradesman. My time has value. If you prefer, I can stop doing repairs and we can hire outside contractors. Of course, that'll cost 3 times as much. She stared at him like he'd grown a second head. This is ridiculous. This is fair. This is what you asked for. Over dinner that night, which she'd had to actually cook herself since Julian was now only handling his own meals unless she wanted to pay for his chef services, Candace's phone rang. Alfonso Pearson's name flashed on the screen. Daddy, he's being impossible, she complained, shooting Julian a glare. He's actually charging me for fixing things around the house. Can you believe that? Julian continued eating his steak, cooked perfectly medium rare, while Candace's voice rose. Yes, I know. You were right about him. Just trying to take advantage. She paused, listening. This weekend? Yes, of course. I'll be there. After she hung up, she turned to Julian. I'm spending the weekend at the estate. Daddy wants to discuss our situation. Your father wants to discuss our marriage. My father wants to ensure I'm protected from people who'd exploit me. Julian set down his fork carefully. Protected from your husband who paid $320,000 for the house you're living in? A house that's half mine by law. Maybe you should think about that. After she stormed upstairs, Julian pulled out his phone and texted Ricardo. Need to meet. Tomorrow. The next day, at a diner in Northern Liberties, Ricardo slid a folder across the table. Did some digging like you asked. Alfonso Pearson's more interesting than I thought. How so? His wealth comes from real estate development, but he's got a reputation. He's crushed 3 different business partners over the years. Buys them out at exactly the moment they're most vulnerable, always for pennies on the dollar. Guy's a shark. And his kids. Noel's a spoiled brat, works for daddy's company in a made-up position. Never held a real job in his life. As for Candace, Ricardo paused. This is delicate, Jules. Just tell me. She's been seen around town with Roman Connor. Investment banker, old money, exactly the kind of guy Alfonso would approve of. The information settled in Julian's chest like a stone. Seen how? Lunch meetings that run long. Dinners at places she hasn't taken you to in months. Could be innocent. Could be. Ricardo trailed off. Could be exactly what it looks like. Julian stared at his coffee. Alfonso introduced them at a charity gala 3 months ago, right around when Candace's behavior changed, according to your timeline. Julian nodded slowly. The pieces were assembling into a picture he didn't want to see but couldn't ignore. What else? The Pearsons have a pattern. Alfonso doesn't just crush business partners. He systematically isolates and eliminates anyone he sees as beneath his family. There was a guy, daughter's previous boyfriend before you. Middle class, worked in marketing. They destroyed his reputation in social circles, got him fired from his job using Alfonso's connections. Guy had to move to Pittsburgh to start over. Why didn't you tell me this before I married her? Would you have listened? You were in love, man. And honestly, I thought Candace was different. Maybe she was once. Julian rubbed his face. So what's the play here? They want me gone, but they don't want a messy divorce that makes them look bad. They want you to walk away, probably offering to buy your share of the house at a fair price that's way under market value. Make you feel like you're coming out ahead while actually getting robbed. And if I don't take it, Ricardo's expression darkened. Then they make things difficult. Alfonso has judges in his pocket, lawyers on retainer, connections that run deep. They'll drag you through a divorce that costs more than you can afford, all while Candace lives comfortably on trust fund money. Unless I have leverage. Unless you have leverage, Ricardo agreed. What are you thinking? Julian pulled out his phone, showing Ricardo the detailed spreadsheet he'd been maintaining. I've been documenting everything. Every contribution, every hour of work, every expense. But I need more. I need to know exactly what they're planning. You need to know if she's actually having an affair. Yeah. Ricardo leaned back. I know a guy. Private investigator, discreet, good rates. Want me to make a call? Julian stared out the diner window at the city he'd grown up in, built a career in, dreamed of building a family in. Make the call. That weekend, while Candace was at the Pearson estate in Gladwine, Julian went through their home office. He wasn't snooping. Everything he looked at was jointly owned, sitting in plain sight. He found credit card statements showing charges at expensive hotels where they'd never stayed together. Restaurant receipts from places Candace claimed she'd been working late. In the back of a drawer, he found a birthday card. The front showed 2 champagne glasses. Inside, in aggressive masculine handwriting, to new beginnings and old money. Finally, someone who understands the finer things. RC, Roman Connor. Julian sat at the desk for a long time, holding the card, feeling the last pieces of his marriage crumble like termite-damaged wood. But underneath the hurt was something harder, sharper. He'd built his entire life from nothing after his parents died. He'd learned to be strong when the world tried to break him. The Pearsons thought he was just some working-class contractor they could push aside. They were about to learn what happened when you underestimated a man who'd built everything he had with his own 2 hands. Chapter 4. The Fine Print. Monday morning, Julian was waiting at the kitchen table when Candace returned from her weekend at the estate. He'd spent Sunday evening preparing documents with Ricardo's help, printing them on legal paper, arranging them in neat folders. Good weekend? He asked as she swept in, designer luggage in hand. Fine. Daddy sends his regards. She didn't quite meet his eyes. He wants to meet with you this week. Discuss our future. I'm sure he does. Julian slid a folder across the table. But first, let's make your 50-50 arrangement official. I had Ricardo draft a post-nuptial agreement. Everything divided equally, just like you wanted. Candace picked up the document warily. What is this? Protection for both of us. It clearly outlines that all household expenses, maintenance, and contributions are split equally. It also includes a comprehensive list of everything I've contributed to the household over the past month, which you'll be reimbursing me for your 50% share. Her eyes widened as she read. You're billing me for mowing the lawn? For cleaning the gutters? For fixing the garbage disposal? My labor rate is standard for the industry. If you prefer to hire outside services, that's fine, but they'll cost 3 times what I'm charging. I'm actually giving you the family discount. This is insane. This is fair. This is 50-50. Julian's voice remained calm, but his eyes were steel. You said you weren't carrying me anymore. This document proves you never were. I've been contributing roughly $6,000 a month in labor and services to this household, not counting my share of bills. You owe me $3,000 for last month alone. Candace's face went pale. I don't have that kind of cash just lying around. Really? You spent $4,000 at Neiman Marcus last week. I saw the statement. That's different. That's my discretionary spending. And home maintenance is your shared responsibility. Sign the agreement, Candace. Or we can get lawyers involved and make this much more complicated. She stared at him, and Julian saw the moment she realized he wasn't the pushover she and her family had assumed. Her jaw tightened. I need to show this to Daddy's attorney. Of course. Ricardo's contact information is on the last page. Have him call him with any questions. After she left for work, her trust fund-enabled consulting job that required maybe 10 hours a week, Julian texted the private investigator Ricardo had recommended. How soon can you start? The response came within minutes. Already on it. We'll have preliminary report by Wednesday. Over the next few days, Julian watched his wife's frustration grow as the reality of true equality settled in. She'd always taken for granted that he'd handle household repairs, yard work, and maintenance. When the toilet in the guest bathroom started running, she called him at work. Can you fix the toilet tonight? I'm working late on the Fishtown development. I can schedule you in for Thursday evening, $85 an hour plus parts. Julian, this is ridiculous. No, what's ridiculous is you demanding 50-50 but expecting me to donate my skilled labor for free. Hire a plumber if you don't want to wait or pay my rate. Should run you about $300 for an emergency call. She hung up on him. That night, Julian returned home to find Candace had attempted to fix the toilet herself. Water was leaking from the base, and she was standing in the bathroom looking furious and helpless. Having trouble? He asked from the doorway. Just fix it. Sure. That'll be $85 an hour, 2-hour minimum for water damage assessment and repair, plus materials. I hate you right now. You hate equality. There's a difference. He turned to leave. Let me know if you want to book my services. Otherwise, I suggest you call a plumber. But I'd shut off the water to that toilet first if I were you. He showed her where the shut-off valve was, free of charge. He wasn't completely heartless, and left her seething in the hallway. Wednesday evening, Julian met the private investigator, a woman named Jody Baird, at a coffee shop in Manayunk. She slid a manila envelope across the table. Your wife's having an affair, Jody said bluntly. Roman Connor, investment banker. They've been meeting at the Rittenhouse Hotel twice a week for the past 2 months. I've got photos, timestamps, credit card records for the room charges, which are on a card held by Alfonso Pearson, interestingly enough. Julian absorbed this information with outward calm, though something cracked deep inside him. Her father's paying for her affair? Looks like it. There's more. Jody pulled out another set of photos. This is from yesterday. Lunch meeting at Devon Seafood Grill with Alfonso Pearson, Noel Pearson, Roman Connor, and a real estate attorney named Morris Frederick. They're planning something. They're planning to push you out. I've got a source at Frederick's firm. They're drafting papers to pressure you into selling your share of the house. The angle is that since your name wasn't on the financing, because you paid cash, they can argue the marital asset should be liquidated and divided. But I paid for it entirely. Doesn't matter in their minds. They think you're just some contractor who got lucky marrying up. They're preparing to crush you legally and socially. Alfonso's already started putting out feelers about your business reputation. Nothing actionable yet, but he's laying groundwork. Julian stared at the photos of his wife with Roman Connor, her hand on his arm, the intimate way they leaned toward each other. What else do I need to know? Roman Connor's married. Wife's name is Lucia Day Connor. She's old Philadelphia money. Family goes back to colonial times. She has no idea about the affair. Roman's playing your wife while keeping his own marriage intact. Classic rich boy behavior. Does Candace know he's married? Hard to say, but I doubt it. The way she looks at him in these photos, she thinks this is real. Julian gathered the evidence carefully. Send me everything digitally too. Encrypted. Already done. What's your next move? I'm going to that meeting with Alfonso, and I'm going to let them think they're winning. Chapter 5. Structural Damage. The Pearson estate in Gladwine was everything Julian's childhood home in Kensington wasn't. Sprawling, immaculate, designed to intimidate. He pulled up in his work truck Thursday evening, noting Alfonso's Bentley and Noelle's Tesla in the circular driveway. A maid answered the door and led him to Alfonso's study, all dark wood and leather and old money. Alfonso Pearson sat behind a massive desk, Noelle lounging in a chair nearby with a smirk on his face. Candace stood by the window, arms crossed, not looking at him. Julian. Alfonso didn't stand or offer a handshake. Thank you for coming. You requested a meeting about my marriage. Hard to say no to that. Sit. Alfonso gestured to a chair positioned lower than his own, a deliberate power play Julian noted and ignored by remaining standing. I'll stand, thanks. Alfonso's jaw tightened slightly. Very well. I'll be direct. Your marriage to my daughter isn't working. The disparity in backgrounds, in education, in social standing, it's creating untenable strain. The disparity, Julian repeated. Interesting way to phrase it. I'm offering you a solution. Alfonso slid a folder across the desk. I'll purchase your share of the house for $200,000. That's a significant premium over your 50% stake at current market value. The house is worth $450,000 minimum. My 50% would be $225,000, and I paid $320,000 for it. Property values fluctuate. Noelle interjected with a smug smile. That's just smart business. Julian looked at Candace. You're okay with your father buying me out of the home I purchased? She finally met his eyes. It's for the best. For both of us. Because of Roman Connor? The room went still. Candace's face drained of color. Alfonso leaned forward. Excuse me. Your daughter's having an affair with Roman Connor. You're paying for the hotel rooms. You all had lunch together yesterday with a real estate attorney to plan this conversation. Julian's voice remained conversational. Did I miss anything? You're delusional, Noelle said, but his voice lacked conviction. Julian pulled out his phone, navigating to the photos Jody had sent. He held it up, showing the image of Candace and Roman at the Rittenhouse Hotel. These are from last Tuesday. I want to see Wednesdays. Candace made a small noise, somewhere between a gasp and a sob. Alfonso stood slowly. Those could be doctored. They're not. And here's the interesting part. Roman's married. Has been for 5 years. His wife is Lucia Day Connor. Old money. Probably someone you know socially. Julian pocketed his phone. Does Candace know that? Or did you think she could break up his marriage like she's breaking up ours? You son of a... Noelle started forward, but Alfonso held up a hand. Sit down, Noelle. Alfonso's voice could have frozen fire. He turned to Julian with new calculation in his eyes. What do you want? I want what I'm owed. I paid $320,000 for that house. If we're divorcing, I want $320,000 back. That's not how marital assets work. Then we'll let a judge decide. Pennsylvania is an equitable distribution state. I paid for the house entirely with premarital funds, and I've been documenting every contribution I've made to the household since Candace demanded 50/50ths. I've got a compelling case that I've been subsidizing her lifestyle while she complains about carrying me. Alfonso's eyes narrowed. You've been planning this. No, I've been protecting myself. There's a difference. Julian moved toward the door. Here's my counteroffer. We sell the house at fair market value. I get my $320,000 off the top as reimbursement for the down payment. Whatever's left over, we split. Candace can have the affair she wants. I get compensated for what I put in. Everyone moves on. And if we refuse, Noelle challenged. Then we go to court, and everything comes out. The affair, Alfonso's involvement in funding it, the attempt to pressure me into a below-market buyout. It'll be messy. The mainline social scene loves scandal, from what I understand. Julian opened the door, then paused. Oh, and Candace? You might want to ask Roman about his wife. I've got her contact information if you need it. He left them sitting in stunned silence, walked out past the maid and the expensive art and the manicured gardens, and climbed into his truck with hands that only shook once he was alone. Ricardo called as he was driving back to the city. How'd it go? I show my cards. Maybe too early. Or right on time. What happened? Julian recounted the meeting. Ricardo was quiet for a moment. You know they're going to come back harder now. I'm counting on it. Let them overplay their hand. Jules, Alfonso Pearson doesn't lose gracefully. You just backed him into a corner in front of his kids. He's going to retaliate. Good. Julian's voice was cold. The angrier he gets, the more mistakes he'll make. And I'll be ready. Chapter 6, The Inspection. The retaliation started Friday morning. Julian arrived at the Fishtown development site to find his crew standing idle and his site manager, Reuben Denton, looking grim. Boss, we got a problem. Building inspector showed up first thing, said we need to stop work pending a safety review. What's safety review? We passed inspection last week. Anonymous complaint. They're saying our scaffolding isn't up to code. Electrical work needs reinspection. Whole 9 yards. This'll set us back 2 weeks minimum. Julian pulled out his phone, calling the inspector's office. After 20 minutes of bureaucratic runaround, the message was clear. Someone with influence had triggered a comprehensive review of all his current job sites. Alfonso Pearson wasn't wasting time. Ricardo confirmed it that afternoon. I made some calls. Word is Alfonso's leaning on every connection he has. The building inspector thing is just the start. He's putting out whispers that your work is substandard, that you cut corners, that contractors should think twice before hiring you. That's defamation. Prove it. He's doing it through intermediaries, at social events, nothing actionable. The man's been destroying people for 30 years. He's good at it. Julian sat in his truck outside the halted job site, thinking. The crew was getting paid whether they worked or not. He'd never short his guys, but the delays would cost him the completion bonus on this project. About $50,000 he was counting on. His phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. You should have taken a deal. This is just the beginning. Noel. Then another, from Candace. Daddy's attorney will contact you Monday with divorce papers. I want you out of the house by then. Julian made 3 calls. First to Gerald Butler, his old mentor, now semi-retired, but still connected in the Philadelphia construction world. Gerald, I need you to make some calls for me. Alfonso Pearson's trying to blackball me. Need people to know the real story. Already heard some rumblings. I'll handle it, kid. The old guard doesn't like mainline money boys thinking they run our industry. Second call to Jody Baird. I need everything you can find on Roman Connor. Business dealings, financial status, anything that explains why Alfonso would encourage his daughter's affair. I'll dig deeper. Give me 48 hours. Third call to Ricardo. File the divorce papers first, Monday morning, and include everything, the affair, the house payment, all our documented evidence. I want Alfonso dealing with our case, not driving the narrative. You sure? Once we file, there's no going back. There's no going back anyway. But I'm not playing defense anymore. That weekend, Julian documented everything in the house. Every upgrade he'd made, every repair, every improvement. He took photos, gathered receipts, created a comprehensive record. Sunday evening, he packed his essential belongings and moved them to Gerald's spare room. When Candace arrived home Sunday night, Julian was waiting at the kitchen table with 2 envelopes. What's this? She asked warily. Divorce papers. I'm filing tomorrow. In this, he slid the second envelope over, is documentation that you're having an affair with a married man, that your father paid for your hotel rooms, and that you all conspired to defraud me out of my property investment. See you in court, Candace. He stood to leave. She grabbed his arm. Julian, wait. Maybe we can. Can what? Work it out? You had your father try to destroy my business this week. You want me homeless and broke. That's not a marriage. That's a war. And I'm going to win it. Her eyes filled with tears, but Julian couldn't tell if they were genuine or performative. It didn't matter anymore. Roman loves me, she said desperately. We're going to be together. This was never going to work anyway. Roman's wife might have opinions about that. I sent her copies of everything yesterday. Certified mail. Candace's face went white. You didn't. I did. Affairs have consequences, Candace. For everyone. He walked out of the house he'd paid for, climbed into his truck, and drove away without looking back. Monday morning, Ricardo filed the divorce papers with comprehensive documentation. By Tuesday, the story had spread through Philadelphia's social circles. Not through gossip, but through legal channels that were becoming public record. Alfonso Pearson's attempt to control the narrative crumbled when his name appeared in court documents as having financed his daughter's affair. Wednesday, Jody called with her findings. Roman Connor's in trouble. His wife filed for divorce yesterday, and it turns out he's been running investment scams, using his family connections to find marks, promising guaranteed returns, then pocketing the money. The Pearsons aren't the only ones he's been playing. Are they victims of his schemes? Not yet, but Alfonso introduced Roman to several business associates who lost money. Once they connect those dots, Alfonso's reputation is finished. He backed the wrong horse. Thursday morning, Julian was back at the Fishtown site when Gerald called. "Kid, you need to see this." Gerald sent a link to a Philadelphia Business Journal article. Old money banker accused in investment fraud scheme. The article detailed Roman Connor's arrest, his pattern of targeting wealthy families, and prominently mentioned his affair with Candace Pearson while married to Lucia Day Connor. Alfonso Pearson was quoted, "My family had no knowledge of Mr. Connor's fraudulent activities or marital status." The quote made Julian laugh bitterly. They'd thrown Roman under the bus to protect themselves, but the damage was done. The Pearson name was now associated with scandal. Friday afternoon, Morris Frederick, Alfonso's real estate attorney, called Julian directly. "Mr. Yates, I'm calling on behalf of Alfonso Pearson with a revised offer." "I'm listening." "Mr. Pearson will agree to your terms. The house sells at fair market value. You receive your $320,000 investment off the top, and remaining equity is split. Additionally, he'll make a one-time payment of $100,000 for your pain and suffering, and he'll issue a formal statement that your construction work is exemplary." Why the sudden generosity? Because a prolonged divorce proceeding would be uncomfortable for everyone. Mr. Pearson wishes to resolve this matter quickly and quietly. Julian smiled. "Tell Mr. Pearson I'll consider his offer. I'll have my attorney contact you with my answer." After hanging up, he called Ricardo. "They're offering $100,000 to go away quietly. You gonna take it?" "Not yet. We got them on the ropes. Let's see how desperate they get." Chapter 7. The Revelation. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in watching a structure collapse from within. Julian stayed at Gerald's place, focusing on his work while letting the legal machinery grind forward. The building inspector's harassment mysteriously ended. Alfonso cutting his losses, and the Fishtown project was back on track. But the Pearson family's dismantling was just beginning. Monday of the third week, Candace showed up at Julian's job site. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, designer clothes rumpled, none of the polished perfection she usually projected. "Julian, please. We need to talk." He set down his level and nodded to his crew. "Take 15. Leading her to his truck, he leaned against the hood. "Talk." "Roman was arrested. Did you know? I saw the news. He was never going to leave his wife. He was using me, using all of us." Her voice cracked. "My father introduced us. He wanted me with someone like Roman, someone from our world. And I destroyed our marriage for a con man." Julian said nothing, just watched her process her choices. "I didn't know he was married. I swear I didn't know until his wife called me. She was so angry, Julian. She said I was just the latest in a long line. That Roman does this constantly, finds bored rich wives to entertain himself. You're not a wife anymore. We're divorcing." I know. Tears streamed down her face. "I'm so sorry. I let my father poison me against you. I let Noel mock you. I forgot that you're the only person who ever loved me for me, not for my last name or my trust fund." It was a pretty speech. Julian might have believed it once. "What do you want, Candace?" "I want to call off the divorce. Start over. Go to therapy. Make this work." "No. Please. I made a mistake. You made 100 mistakes. You let your family treat me like garbage for 3 years. You demanded 50-50 while taking everything I contributed for granted. You had an affair. Your father tried to destroy my business and steal my house. Julian's voice stayed level, but his eyes were hard. Those aren't mistakes. That's who you chose to be. I'll change. Maybe you will. For someone else, someday. But not for me. Not anymore. She collapsed against the truck, sobbing. Part of Julian, the part that had loved her once, wanted to comfort her. But that part was small now, buried under documented evidence and hotel receipts and 3 years of slow disrespect. The divorce goes forward, he said quietly. But I'll agree to your father's offer. $100,000 settlement, fair market sale of the house, my $320,000 back. We both move on. What if I refuse? What if I fight it? Then we go to trial, and everything becomes public record, including the conversations I recorded. Her head snapped up. What conversations? Pennsylvania's a one-party consent state. I can record conversations I'm part of without telling you. That meeting at your father's house? Your 50-50 declaration? All recorded. All admissible in court. The lie came easily. He hadn't actually recorded anything, but she didn't know that. Her face crumbled. You've been planning this the whole time. No, I've been protecting myself the whole time. There's a difference. He pushed off the truck. Sign the papers, Candace. Let's both salvage something from this wreckage. She left without another word. That evening, Ricardo called with unexpected news. We got a problem. Or maybe an opportunity, depending on how you look at it. What happened? Alfonso Pearson was arrested this afternoon. Securities fraud. Turns out Roman Connor wasn't just running his own schemes. He was working with Alfonso on some of them. The FBI's been investigating for months. Your divorce filing actually helped crack the case open. It created a paper trail they could follow. Julian sat down heavily. Alfonso's going to prison? Looking likely. He's out on bail, but facing serious charges. The Pearson empire is collapsing. Their assets might get frozen during investigation, including the house. Potentially, it's in your name and Candace's, but if they can prove any of Alfonso's money went into it, and given that he was paying for her affair, there's financial entanglement. It could get complicated. What's our move? Sell fast, before anything gets tied up in federal proceedings. I've already contacted a real estate agent. We can list tomorrow, likely have offers within a week. The house is in a good neighborhood. Great condition thanks to all your work. Do it. The house listed Thursday and had 3 offers by Monday. Julian accepted the highest, $465,000. After real estate fees and closing costs, there would be about $440,000 to divide. His $320,000 off the top, leaving $120,000 to split with Candace. She gets $60,000 from the sale, plus Alfonso's promised $100,000 settlement that was now in jeopardy given his legal troubles. But Julian had one more card to play. Chapter 8, The Collapse. The final confrontation happened at Morris Frederick's law office, all parties present for the settlement conference. Alfonso Pearson looked diminished, his expensive suit hanging wrong, his confidence shattered. Noelle sat beside him, equally deflated. Candace looked like she hadn't slept in days. Across the table, Julian sat with Ricardo, calm and prepared. Let's begin, Frederick said wearily. Mr. Pearson has agreed to the settlement terms with one modification. The $100,000 payment will be structured over 5 years instead of lump sum, given current financial constraints. No, Julian said simply. Mr. Yates, given the federal investigation. I don't care about the federal investigation. That's not my problem. Julian pulled out a folder. But I do care about the complete picture. So let's lay out everything on the table. He slid documents across. These are receipts for every repair, upgrade, and improvement I made to the house over 3 years. Total value, $84,000. Under Pennsylvania law, I'm entitled to reimbursement for improvements made to marital property with separate funds. Frederick scanned the documents, his face darkening. This is quite comprehensive. I'm a contractor. Documentation is part of the job. Julian pulled out more papers. These are logs showing my time contributions to household management, maintenance, and unpaid labor over 3 years. At standard contractor rates, that's an additional $127,000 in value I contributed beyond the purchase price. You can't bill your wife for being a husband, Noel sputtered. Actually, in an equitable distribution state, when one party demands an accounting of contributions, which Candace did with her 50-50 ultimatum, the court can consider all contributions to marital property. I'm simply following through on what she requested. Ricardo leaned forward, enjoying himself. We're prepared to argue that Mr. Yates is owed $320,000 for the original purchase, $84,000 for documented improvements, and a portion of the $127,000 in labor contributions. Call it $530,000 total. The room went silent. That's more than a house sold for, Frederick said quietly. Correct. Which means in a trial, Candace would likely receive nothing from the marital estate and might actually owe Julian money. However, Ricardo paused dramatically. We're willing to settle. Julian gets his $320,000 purchase price plus the $84,000 in documented improvements, total $404,000. Candace gets the remaining $36,000 from a sale. The $100,000 settlement payment from Mr. Pearson is due in full within 30 days, or we proceed to trial where all of this becomes public record during a federal investigation. Alfonso's attorney whispered urgently in his ear. Alfonso's face was red, his hands shaking. This is extortion. This is accounting, Julian corrected. Your daughter demanded 50/50ths. I documented everything. She wanted fairness. Here it is. Candace stared at the numbers, the reality finally sinking in. She'd walked into a marriage with a man who'd built everything he had through hard work and careful planning. She'd assumed he was naive, simple, easy to manipulate. She'd learned too late that contractors built things to last, including their defenses. There's more, Julian said softly. I found something interesting while packing up the house. He pulled out a final document. This is the original deed to the property. Turns out the previous owner was a company called Pearson Holdings, LLC. The house was originally purchased by your father 15 years ago as an investment property. He held on to it, waited until the market appreciated, then had it listed at exactly $320,000. Overpriced for a property that needed work, but priced perfectly to drain my savings. The room went dead silent. You set this up, Julian said to Alfonso. You bought this house years ago, waited until your daughter married someone you didn't approve of, then made sure we found it. Made sure I paid every dollar I had for it. It was a trap from the beginning. Alfonso said nothing, but his silence was confirmation enough. So here's my final offer, Julian continued. I take $404,000 from the house sale. That leaves Candace $36,000. Alfonso pays the $100,000 settlement in full within 30 days. And I keep quiet about this elaborate setup, because if this comes out during your federal trial, Mr. Pearson, it establishes a pattern of financial manipulation that won't help your case. Morris Frederick looked at his client. Alfonso looked at his daughter, seeing perhaps for the first time the wreckage his machinations had created. Finally, he nodded once, sharply. Agreed. Papers were signed. The marriage was officially dissolved. Julian walked out of that office, having recovered not just his investment, but his dignity and his future. Outside, Candace caught up with him on the sidewalk. Julian, wait. He turned, giving her one last moment. You really never recorded any conversations, did you? She asked quietly. No, but you believed I did. That tells you everything about your own actions. You knew they wouldn't sound good played back. I'm sorry. For all of it. You deserve better. Yeah, I did. But I learned something valuable. Never confuse someone's financial status with their character. Never mistake someone's polish for their worth. He looked at her directly. You had every advantage. Money, education, opportunity. I had nothing but what I built. And in the end, I'm still standing. What will you do now? Same thing I've always done. Build. He walked toward his truck. Good luck, Candace. I mean that. Figure out who you are without your father's influence. He drove away, leaving the Pearson family and their wreckage behind. Chapter 9. The New Foundation. 6 months later, Julian stood in the office of Butler Yates Construction, the company he'd formed in partnership with Gerald. The old man had kicked in his reputation and remaining contacts. Julian had invested his settlement money. Together, they were building something solid. Got another contract, Gerald called from his desk. Luxury condo development in University City. They specifically requested us after hearing about the Fishtown project. Julian smiled. We're booked through next spring already. That's what happens when you do good work and treat people right. Word spreads. Gerald looked at his young partner with pride. Your daddy would be proud, kid. You took a beating and came back stronger. The door chimed. Ricardo walked in with coffee and news. You're going to love this. Alfonso Pearson was sentenced this morning. 7 years federal prison. Restitution of $12 million to his victims. And Candace. Last I heard, she's working a real job for the first time in her life. Some marketing firm in Center City. No trust fund access. Everything's tied up in restitution. No L2. They're learning to live like the rest of us. Julian felt no satisfaction in their downfall, but no guilt either. They made their choices. He'd made his. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Mr. Yates, my name is Tarang Nguyen. I'm a friend of Ricardo's. He mentioned you might be free for dinner sometime. No pressure, but I'd love to meet the man who built that beautiful renovation in Fishtown. Julian stared at the message, feeling something unfamiliar. Possibility. Ricardo grinned. I might have mentioned you to a friend. She's an architect. Self-made, smart, no family money. Thought you two might have things in common. You're matchmaking now. I'm networking. Whether it becomes more is up to you. Julian typed a response. I'd like that. How about Saturday? The reply came quickly. Perfect. Looking forward to it. He pocketed his phone and looked around the office, small but growing, filled with plans and blueprints and the smell of fresh coffee. Outside the window, Philadelphia spread out in the late afternoon light, full of projects to build and lives to rebuild. Gerald was right. Everything started with the foundation. Julian had learned that lesson at 12 years old, had forgotten it during his marriage, and had relearned it the hard way. But now he understood it completely. You couldn't build anything lasting on someone else's money, someone else's approval, or someone else's expectations. You had to dig down to bedrock, put in your own time and sweat and sacrifice, and build from there. Candace had wanted 50-50, thinking it would prove he was using her. Instead, it had proven exactly the opposite, that he'd been carrying far more than his share all along, and she'd never even noticed. The irony wasn't lost on him. That evening, Julian drove past the house he'd once owned. New owners now, a young couple with a baby. They'd kept most of his improvements, added some of their own. Through the kitchen window, he could see them cooking dinner together, laughing about something. It was a good house. It deserved a better foundation than the one he and Candace had tried to build. Saturday came, and Julian met Tara at a cafe in Rittenhouse Square. She was practical, funny, asked detailed questions about his work that showed genuine interest. No designer clothes, no family estate, just a woman who'd built her career through talent and persistence. Ricardo says you recently went through a divorce, she said over coffee. Is that a problem? Depends. Are you looking for revenge, a rebound, or something real? Julian appreciated the directness. Something real. Eventually, when I'm ready. Good answer. She smiled. I'm not in a hurry either, but I like meeting interesting people. And anyone who can do a complete renovation in 4 months while dealing with a divorce is definitely interesting. They talked until the cafe closed, then walked through the city as lights came on. Julian told her about growing up in Kensington, about Gerald and Ricardo, about learning that the best things in life were built, not given. She told him about her family's immigration from Vietnam, about working through architecture school, about learning that in America, you could build anything if you had the skill and the will. When they said goodnight, she squeezed his hand. Let's do this again. I'd like that. Driving home, Julian realized he was smiling. Really smiling. Not the grim determination he'd worn for months, but genuine contentment. The Pearsons had tried to break him. They tried to prove he was nothing without their daughter, their money, their approval. Instead, they'd proven exactly the opposite. He'd come out of the wreckage with more than he'd lost. Not just money, but self-respect, clarity, and the freedom to build a life on his own terms. 6 months ago, Candace had looked at him and said she wasn't carrying him anymore. She'd expected tears, arguments,